the awakening process and the fifth dimension. I want to talk about all of this and how it's impacting us as humans here on Earth, and a lot of our highly sensitive people, our empaths, our psychics, our mediums, our healers. You know, you just don't wake up one day and decide that you want to go into this and, you know, this is what you're going to do. It doesn't just happen overnight. It is a gradual start when you awaken. To understand the awakening process a little bit better and Ascension, I'll explain, you know, how this works. So, first, let me explain what the fifth dimension is that we're in and the fourth dimension. So, like the early 1900s, all the 1900s and part, you know, of the late 1900s, we were in the fourth dimension. And the fourth dimension just means that the people that were there in that time period were almost not so much asleep, but these are our ancestors. It could be your father, your mother, your grandparents, your great-grandparents at this point. Basically, this is a time period when the world was slowly awakening to their consciousness and, you know, discerning between right and wrong. The world itself was becoming more aware of spirituality and kind of accepting it, but there was still religion. Now, there's a difference between religion and spirituality. Religion is a set doctrine, and it gives you a certain way to view the world, and that's the only way to view it and to follow it. Where spirituality is more open and accepting to all types of cultures, belief systems, and the one message behind that is love. Spirituality is love. So, you know, it was gradually, during this time period, there were indigos that became, you know, like from the period of 1940s, 1950s, extending all the way up to the early 2000s. And then from the 2000s on, we started gravitating towards a new consciousness or a new dimension, which is called the fifth dimension that we're in now. And this is where you would see a lot of, you know, people that are crystal children, rainbow children, and some indigos that were born. And they, these people were sent to Earth to change it for a good cause, you know, to change it for a positive, in a positive manner. There's a lot of humanitarians now being witnessed, a lot of philanthropy, a lot of humanitarians, a lot of peace workers, a lot of healers. So gradually our world has shifted, and it's continuing to shift, and we're now what we call in the fifth dimension. Now back, one of the greatest psychics ever was Edward Case, and his works, you know, he was like one of the first psychics, and a lot of his abilities and a lot of the readings that he did was when he was in, you know, dreaming. You know, and there's collected, like there's a lot of stuff written about him and his journals, you know, his readings that were all documented, and it was just amazing. So there was a lot of pioneers. There was Nostradamus, there was Edward Case, and then there was just a lot of other ones. There's a lot to name, you know, but as the years progress, slightly, you know, every generation, to every decade, there was a new pioneer or a new light worker that was born into that system to change the world. They were sent specifically, or they awakened at a specific time in that whole time frame to you know, impact the world in a positive manner and just show the world, you know, that there are you know, other things that that science cannot explain. There are other abilities out there. There is the supernatural, and it does exist. So that's what I'm getting at. And this is typically what the fourth dimension experienced. A lot of these people were more asleep, the majority of the world. They were slowly awakening to the possibility that there is life beyond, you know, death, and that there are maybe other things in the world like angels, fairies, and the list goes on and on. And now, starting to the 2000s, I don't know if you noticed, but there's a lot more celebrity psychic mediums. There's been a lot of documentation of where mediums, you know, have been witnessed on TV to have these abilities that science cannot explain, but for whatever reason they're, you know, very strong, and it's just, you know, it opens the eyes of humanity that, hey, this is real. There are people, you know, that are given gifts, and they're, you know, are given the gifts to change the world. So, you know, every generation has someone that is born into that generation and that will make some kind of change in our consciousness and how we interpret things. Now that I've explained what's the fourth and fifth dimension, kind of, the fifth dimension, like I said, is what we're in now. It's a period of a lot of upheaval, but at the same time we have all of these light workers out there. All of you that are tuning into this video, myself, just, you know, a whole group of people that are awakening. It's kind of like, I don't know, I don't want to, you know, use this reference, but I don't know if y'all ever watched that TV show like Buffy the Vampire Slayer. And at the end, you know, Buffy, you know, she was the chosen one, or that's how they termed her. Into every generation of Slayers born, you know, to fight evil and fight vampires and whatnot. But I'm using her as a generalization because it's kind of like that, you know. And so at the end, if you haven't been familiar with the show, or you never saw that show in the late 90s into the early 2000s, basically she was someone who was given supernatural abilities to fight evil. And at the end, there's this big war between good and evil. It's kind of like what we're in now. And she was given, you know, the abilities, but during that whole time frame, you know, at the very end, she could not fight this huge army of evil by herself. So basically what happened was that there was some magic done, or, you know, just the way it happened to work was that her gift, you know, was transmuted to other people, or was given to other girls, and then all of these girls became chosen ones as well. Their light was awakened within, and they had these abilities. So I'm just using that as a reference. I hope that doesn't find anybody doesn't find that offensive. That's not my intention. It's just to kind of better explain, so y'all get a better grasp. For those of you that are tuning in and that have seen, you know, that show and kind of are familiar, that's what's actually going on. Except for it's not just all girls. There are a lot of males also that are awakening, and females. You know, and basically a lot of people around the world that are now, their light within activates, the DNA changes within them. And so the ascension, or the awakening that you go through, it's not something that's typically like just happens overnight with the click of your finger, you know, snap of your finger, and you just wake up and, hey, you want to read people, or you're just in tune. That's not how it works. It is a process, and it does take some time to adjust to it. I, for myself, when I went through my awakening process, and I rarely ever discuss this with anyone, I've kind of documented in some of my articles that I've written, but my awakening process, and I've read a lot of people's awakening processes, and they were very similar. You know, there's some comparisons there, but when I first awakened, I was a natural-born medium, psychic medium, but I always had those abilities, but they kind of like diminished, or I put them to the background until my 30s. Well, in my 30s, when I was 31, I got extremely sick. Basically, I would have a lot of panic attacks, and I felt a lot of anxiety when I would go specifically around large groups of people, or places like a shopping mall, Walmart. I couldn't even get off of the car. I would feel all this emotions, and they were very paralyzing. Like, for example, I would get off the car, get into the parking lot, start walking towards the store to go in the store, and midway, my legs felt like jelly. And I felt this vibration on my legs and going up through my body, and I felt like I was being lifted off of the ground. And I just felt like my legs, like I couldn't understand. And that's the scary part, when you can't understand what's going on and why it's happening to you, you know. And you go to doctors, and doctors cannot find a medical diagnosis for your condition or for what's going on. They just pass it off as anxiety attacks, and it's much more than that. You know, and then I would go into the store, and then I felt like throat was closing on me, like I couldn't swallow, and I felt my chest was pounding like I was having a heart attack. Couldn't breathe. I would get sweaty from my palms. And, you know, it's hard for me to even discuss this, but I feel pretty comfortable now since I've accepted it. It was very traumatic. I'm not going to paint this picture that it was something, you know, that, oh, well, I just got sick with the flu. And, you know, when you are asleep, and that's the term I want to use, that, but not asleep like I'm falling asleep, but consciously asleep, and you're not awakened to the world out around you, you know, the truth behind everything, your truth in your side yourself and inside of others. That's our divine consciousness, and you know, that's what connects us all together. If you're not fully awakened, the awakening process for everybody is different, but it can be pretty traumatic, not to scare anybody out there. But for a lot of you that have gone through it, you know that, you know, it can last months, it can last years. It's all about how you resist it. The more that you resist it, meaning that you don't try to find out what's really going on, or try to even consider that it could be, there is a spiritual reason behind what you're going through and not so much a medical. A lot of people will resist it, and they try to find every classification of a disease or illness. They go to numerous doctors, and the doctors cannot help them because, again, like I said, this is not a physical thing that you're going through. It's physical in the sense that what you feel, the symptoms are physical, but there's no medical medical diagnosis that can be made. So a lot of doctors will just, you know, classify you as having anxiety. And you may go to 2 or 3 and they all say, well, we don't find anything. You've gone through blood work and whatnot. So, you know, that was my whole thing, and I did go to a lot of doctors, and they could not find anything wrong with me. Then finally, you know, I started becoming more in tune with my abilities and in accepting them. Gradually the anxiety died away and went away. So a lot of people, you know, and us as sensitive people and empaths and healers, we're not very understood. That's one of the things that we're facing right now as light workers in 2016. There's so many people that are still stuck in the 4th dimension or stuck in their religious beliefs, and they find us, us spiritualists, us light workers, as very outlandish, or they find us controversial, or they cannot just accept that there is something possibly behind, you know, than other than what they were taught or conditioned by society to accept. So a lot of us now are going through this period, you know, where we're being misunderstood. And it's almost like, I want to say, it's almost like, you know, you see like these global, in our history and our ancestors, these time periods where there was this group of people that were misunderstood, or they were treated horribly because of the color of their skin, or the color of, you know, or because of their economic status. So it's almost like that with us light workers. You cannot go to a certain person, or a lot of light workers are afraid to come out into the open and do what I'm doing, or what a lot of my colleagues are doing, and go behind in front of a camera, or openly go out into their community and talk to people about, you know, their gifts. Or a lot of communities don't offer psychic fairs. They don't offer a lot of venues where people of like-minded, you know, like us, can go out there and feel comfortable. So a lot of people retract. A lot of light workers out there that are tuning into this, I know a lot of you retract and you feel afraid, and there's no need to feel afraid at all. You know, if you're here on my page, if you're in a psychic group, or you're in a healers group, or, you know, you need some kind of support out there. And that's my whole goal as a light worker, as a psychic, a medium, a clairvoyant, is to help. You know, one of my missions here on Earth is to make sure that through my gifts and my knowledge that I have, you know, received, that I can spread that message out to the world, out to all of you light workers out there, to not be afraid, because it is very, you know, difficult, especially when you have family who doesn't understand you, or friends, and, you know, you try to tell them something and they'll laugh at you. And your immediate intention is to just shut down your gifts, and the light within you slowly dies, you know, and it just diminishes, and then you just become, you know, basically what everybody else is. It's kind of like putting a uniform on, and everybody has the same uniform, but we have like a different uniform because we are light workers, and so you stand out, you know, and it's not an easy process. A lot of people are ridiculed daily. And it's bad when even your own colleagues within you, you know, you'll find within spirituality itself, there are a lot of people who do this and they classify themselves as light workers, but yet they bash their brothers and sisters. They judge or have preconceived notions, or they tell you, you know, that no, my way is the right way. I don't understand, you know, your way is not the correct way. And, you know, my way is the correct way. And they try to shut you down or try to ridicule you, gossip about you, you know, tell other people, you know, they'll do anything. And it could be that because, you know, they have ego. But, you know, beyond ego, a lot of people are still stuck in the fourth dimension. So this explains a lot of behaviors that we do see. But the message behind this video today is about the fifth dimension and the ascension process and awakening process, and to accept who you are and your destiny. You may be out there looking at and tuning into this and just saying to yourself, well, I don't understand why I was sent to earth. I don't understand my mission yet. I don't understand. And it's okay. You do need to meditate more. You do need to go within prayer and kind of ask for some signs, and you'll know, like, there's one day that you will eventually, you know, just know I was sent here to do this, to help people. A lot of people, you know, will say, well, you charge for your gift, you know, it's wrong for you to charge for your gift, but you have to understand, if you're living in this world, we're living on earth, we're not living in the spiritual realm. People do have to make a living. You know, if you're in religion, there are preachers out there that do charge, you know, well, they accept donations, you know, tithes, you know, offerings. There's people, I mean, you wouldn't go to a doctor, you know, even a holistic doctor, and expect to be serviced, you know, or seen by them without getting some kind of, and for them, you know, paying them some kind of fee. So a lot of people, you know, will figure, you know, it's wrong, but it's not really wrong. You know, and there's a lot of things like a lot of people consider, you know, but like for myself, I've written books out there for y'all. A lot of my colleagues have written books. They do these developmental videos. I don't make any money off of making these developmental videos. But I do it because I really am true to my word, and I love helping y'all out there. You know, and so I feel that, you know, the developmental videos gets people who are maybe awakening, or who are not yet fully awakened, but they are almost there, or people who are in different parts of, you know, of development, and hope that these videos actually help you develop. You know, I write my articles, I do my horoscopes daily that I write, and I don't do this for money. So, you know, and even when I do charge for my private readings, I do balance it out. And it's all about giving back. I do go into different groups and forums and do free readings for people ever so often, because I do believe in the concept of, you know, not just taking, but giving back. And it is a blessing. I feel that God has blessed me with this gift, and it's an amazing gift. But at the same time, you know, there's no way to shut it off, and I wish sometimes there were ways to shut it off. You know, and a lot of things that we encounter, you know, as spiritualists or light workers out there with this gift. So a lot of people take our gift for granted, and you know, they may friend request us to become Facebook friends, only for the premise of getting or receiving, you know, a free reading from us, because they are now our Facebook friends, and that's the whole wrong mentality. And that's what I'm asking you out there. If you're a light worker and you come across somebody like myself, or somebody out there who has the gift, don't just send them a friend request or try to be their friend just to get a reading for free. It's wrong. It's wrong spiritually to do that, because your intentions are not to the highest good, and your intentions are not true. So if you're out there and you are in this ability, you know, you're a healer offering healings, or, you know, you're a colleague out there. Don't just friend request somebody just because you want a free reading, and, you know, that you feel that they'll be obligated to give you that free reading. It's wrong. And so I've lost a lot of friends off of my Facebook list that, you know, classified themselves as friends, but their whole intentions were fully wrong. And you can't fool anyone, because energy never lies. So we all know, and I know a lot of my colleagues out there that are tuning into this know this to be true. So just be true to yourself. Stand strong in your gift. Don't let anyone shut you down or to tell you that you're wrong, because you are not wrong. And anything that you're doing out there and you're learning, it's in your own pace. Your way of interpreting things, or the way Spirit may communicate to you, may be different entirely from how somebody else receives their information or gets it. Just stay true to yourself. Don't let anyone discourage you. And keep following through with your gifts. That's the message that I want to send today. Just be strong, because it takes one person to change the world, and you can change the world. Like I said, if you are tuning in from YouTube, you can subscribe to this video. You can visit my website. It's www.psychicmediumray.webs.com. On Instagram, you can follow me. I'm Psychic Medium Ray. And then if you're on Facebook, you can just go to my professional Facebook page, and it's Psychic Medium Raymond Guzman. So thank you so much for tuning in, and blessings and love and light.